Welcome back to our International Women's Day special. Our next topic, Indigenous feminism. Michaella Shannon is here to help us understand this intersectional theory and how gender and conceptions of gender influence the lives of Indigenous peoples historically and, of course, today. Michaella, welcome. First, can you explain Indigenous feminism from your perspective as an Indigenous woman?
Well, to understand how Indigenous feminism is different from the original white feminist movement, we must first understand the motives and battles behind white feminism. White feminism is a term used to describe the expressions of feminism, which are perceived to focus on the struggles of white women while failing to address the many distinct forms of oppression that ethnic minority women face and other women that are lacking privileges face as well. It is a fight for equality between man and woman under the patriarchy. Now, in Indigenous communities, women were not always thought of or treated as inferior. Women were the backbones of the community. Patriarchy and gender binary were and are products of colonialism. And we as Indigenous women imagine and understand what a balanced society looks like because it existed before. So to loosely define Indigenous feminism, it's an intersectional theory and practice of feminism that focuses on decolonization, Indigenous sovereignty, and human rights for Indigenous women and their families.
Any of us who exist in the intersections have always understood that our feminism is not necessarily like the first and the second waves of feminism that we all studied in school. Because I know for Black women, it was never about the fight to work. We've been working. That was very much a part of white feminism. And so there's so many different issues when you look at the intersections and the issues that we're dealing with in life. So talk to us some more about how Indigenous cultures maintained this gender balance, because it's something I feel like we can all learn from.
Yes, our Indigenous communities were balanced because we understood that the roles that man and women possessed were equally valuable to the livelihood of our communities and the livelihood of our land. Gender inequality exists today, and it is socially constructed. And we see it embedded in structures, all colonial institutions and structures, including educational systems, governance systems, workplace settings, and religion. And women today are still fighting in many parts of the world, including our home territory and home country, for basic human rights, for equality, for respect, for safety, and recognition. Patriarchy exists in our country now because of the forced adoption of Western government to maintain our sovereign status. So although there is that colonial thumbprint, there is optimism because there are diverse systems that we have memory of from before colonialism.
Yeah, there is a model that existed before colonialism. So what can we all do to uphold Indigenous feminism, Michaella?
Indigenous feminism requires us to not only fulfill our cultural roles, but also to correct and fix the cultural roles that have been twisted by colonialism and patriarchy. And it demands us to ask difficult questions and to have these difficult discussions and conversations. We need to restore our original identities and agreements between our communities and between ourselves and with the land. We need to prioritize issues that are of urgent crises in Indigenous communities, like the missing and murdered Indigenous women epidemic, forced sterilization of Indigenous women, the struggle for land rights, and the disproportionate sexualization of Indigenous women, specifically targeted by white men, and build from those matriarchal foundations. So imagine how much better this work would be when our Indigenous women, our matriarchs, have the autonomy, the agency, and the power once again. And not power over men or power over other people, but transformative power, power that comes from respect for self and equality with others.
I can imagine it. I can imagine it, and it looks really good. Michaella, thank you so much for helping us understand Indigenous feminism in a deeper way. So many layers there that we need to get through, so that was a great introduction.